All right. So what we're going to do now, ya ikhwan, as I promised, is we're going to do a practical exercise now, practically applying some of the principles that we kind of discussed or worked on in the second half of yesterday's series of lectures, where we kind of took some passages from the Quran and we kind of applied those principles that we learned about how we read the Quran or how we use the Quran as a tool for Tafseer. We did some of that, which was more, I guess, instructor-led. But now it's time for what? For you to try to venture on your own and apply what we kind of did together when I kind of held your hand. All right. So now the way we're going to do it is we're not going to do it individually. We're going to do it in small groups. So let me take a count. So I think what we can do is we can do 5 groups of 4. Let's do 5 groups of 4. And if it's 5 in a group, that's okay. Because we might have some people still outside. So everybody just try to get 4 people together in a group. So look to your right, look to your left, whatever. And create small groups. And give yourself a little space. Okay? Groups of 4, ya ikhwan. Let's create groups of 4. And like I said, there's 5 in a group, it's okay. Our 2 cameramen, they just need 2 people to sit with them. Okay? And because they can't really move, the camera kind of has them locked down, but somebody can move towards them. And then you're going to need a mushaf or masahif. You're going to need a Quran, or maybe a Quran for the group, or one Quran for each person in the group. Okay? It's probably better if everybody has their own, but if one could work. And and it's okay if it's English or Arabic or Urdu, whatever language you feel comfortable. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Arabic now because we're not doing tajweed now. Okay? And the surah that we're going to work on, ya ikhwan, is going to be Surah al Asr. So that's the 103rd surah in the Quran. Right? Actually, 109, I'm sorry. No, that's right, 103. I'm right, 103. 103. Okay? So again, groups of 4. If you have 5, it's okay. And we're going to work on Surah al Asr and try to apply some of those stages that we talked about in terms of using the Quran for a tasfiyah. Okay? All right, so let's remind ourselves really quickly. What were the rules that we said? What were the stages that we said for reading? Using the Quran as a tool. What were the stages? So we have to read, and reading had 3 steps or 3 parts to it. What were the 3 parts to reading?
Put yourself in.
All right, so read it regularly, okay? And then putting yourself as if Allah is talking to you, right? And then critical, analytical, right? So I can't just read the words, I have to read what? Beneath the words, right? And look for the hidden meanings or the additional meanings or the deeper meanings, I should say, in the words, okay? So those last 2 are really important for what we're doing today. The last 2 being that we're going to read deeper, right? Read below, between the lines, if you will. And we're going to be putting ourselves in the verses, right? Seeing ourselves in the verses. Okay, so after that, after reading, we said what? You have to ponder, right? Think about the lessons. That's another thing too. Ponder and look for what? Lessons. What lessons do I find? Okay? What indications, what principles are being pointed to, right? So you're looking for lessons and principles, okay? That's what I want you to look for, lessons and principles. Lessons and principles. What's the third thing we said? So now we're going to try to go from the level of pondering it to understanding what is wanted, what is desired from us. What should we be doing? How should we be acting? What is being said to us? What are we supposed to take from it? Understand. And then once we understand, we have to do what? Surrender to it. Okay, so. And then once we surrender, then we'll be able to what? Act in accordance with it and make our desires in accordance with it, right? Act and make our desires in accordance with it. Okay, good. So let's focus today, ya ikhwan, on reading. And we talked about two specific ones from reading, which is reading deeper, reading between the lines, and seeing ourselves in the verse. Let's focus on that, on those two. And ponder to try to derive what? Lessons and principles. Let's focus on that for today, okay? All right. And I'm going to help you with some questions. So I'm going to help you in the sense that I'm going to give you some questions to help you probe and achieve these objectives. Now that's a huge group right there. You've got to make our groups a little smaller. So those four, and okay, then Sammy, Amr, and what's your name, brother? And William, you guys will be another group. So you guys give us a little space because we don't want you guys to cheat off of them, right? Huh? Okay, he'll go with them. Now, what do we have going on here? You guys have a huge group. That's an unfair advantage. You have 1, 2, 3, 5. Your son is tipping the scales. Okay, that's fair. I see. You guys got a ringer over there. Okay, I get it. All right. Oh, so we're fair now. Okay, it's good now. All right, so we're going to start with, as we said, we're going to do Surah al Asr. And let's start with al-Ayat al-Ula, the first verse, which is 2 words, Waw al-Qasam and al-Asr. Okay? So the questions I'm going to give you to discuss, and there's no problem if there's a book of Tafseer you want to use all the means at your disposal. You want to use the Jawal to look for something, whatever you want to do. But the 2 questions I have for you, the first one is Waw al-Qasam, this wow of swearing, okay, which they translate in the Quran as by, or I swear by. What do we learn from that? What does that teach us? What's the significance of it? That's the first question I want you to discuss and try to reach something about that. And then al-Asr, what does it mean? What's the meaning of al-Asr? Wait, don't say it, Sam. You're giving them the answer. This is for your group only. You don't want to give them the answer, right? That's for all of you, yeah. But he answered. I'm like, don't answer for them. Answer for your group, right? All right. So what does it mean linguistically, and what does it mean in terms of what? The context. What's intended by it? What's intended by it here? And what is the ibrah? Al-ibratu lati fi. What is the lesson? What is the principle? What is the teaching point that is in al-Asr? Okay? All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on that. Give you a few minutes to work on those questions just for what? Al-Asr. So this Waw al-Qasam, what does it mean? What's the significance? And al-Asr, what does it mean linguistically? And what does it mean in terms of what? What's intended by it? And then what is the ibrah, the lesson that it contains? Work on that, and then we'll see where we're at. Give you a few minutes to work on that. So discuss as a group, use whatever wasa'il means you have, and then we're going to go around. طيب يا اخوان. All right, let's see what we got. Let's see what shakes out, huh? طيب, so who will speak to us about Waw al-Qasam? Who will speak to us about Waw al-Qasam? Who wants to say something about that? تفضل عباسي, yeah. Now just let's focus just before we put it all together. Just I swear by that. Wow, that first part of it. What do we get out of that? What's significant about that? Tell me that. Okay, so I'll let you come in when you're ready, but I want to focus just on that first part of it. Waw al-Qasam. تفضل يا شيخ.
Bring our attention that this is going to be something important.
أحسنت.
Follow it, so we should focus
Ahsant.
So like just the wow, okay, what was coming next?
So wow al-qasam, anytime we read in the Quran, ya ikhwan, we come across wow al-qasam, two things should occur to us. One, whatever's going to be said is what? Really important. It's really important because Allah doesn't swear unless what? Something is important. The scholars of Islam, they say, Inna Allah azimun, la yuqsim illa bi azimin, wa la yuqsim illa ala azimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is great. He's magnificent. He doesn't swear except by magnificent things and for a magnificent purpose. So something significant is going to be said if he what? If he swears. That's the first thing. The second thing is that people typically swear in the Arabic culture, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed His Quran first and foremost to what? The Arabs. So the Quran was in keeping with their style, basically. Their literary style, their style of expression. So when a person swears, oftentimes they would swear when they're going to say something that people typically what? Doubt or question. And so they swear because in their code, when somebody swears, you're supposed to what? Believe them and accept what they say. So oftentimes Allah will swear when He's going to mention something that the people are going to what? Doubt or have a hard time swallowing it, right? That's another thing that you want to go up. We're looking for something, we're going to probably come across something which what? People have a hard time what? Accepting it. And we have to accept it. We have to accept it. Okay? You guys follow that? So whenever you see waw al-qasam, those two flags or those two antennas should come up. Okay? Alright, so that's waw al-qasam. Alright, talk to me about al-Asr. Who will talk to us about al-Asr? First of all, what does it mean? So you're going to just say what the meaning of it is. The word, what is intended by the meaning? What is intended by al-Asr? Just the literal meaning of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Among the meanings, one can be just time, but this is time that is measured.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unlimited time as against Dhahar. Dhahar would be completely unlimited time.
Mm-hmm.
And so Asr can be expanded and you can understand it better when you say Asrar, which would be from one day to one night, the period between day and night.
Mm-hmm.
And also from morning and evening.
Mm-hmm.
Another way would be when you pray Asr, and again it's a measurable period of time, the Salat al Asr.
Hey.
In between this time period between Dhuhr and
Hey. Mumtaz.
And Dhuhr again is another measurable time. It's not like unlimited time.
Uh-huh.
And also from the root meaning, one of the meanings that it has mentioned is to press, to squeeze.
Al-Asir. Al-Asir, yeah.
So for example, and also Isa, like a whirlwind and hurricane. So as I say this, maybe it's like a time which is limited. You try to get the maximum benefit from that.
MashaAllah.
When I look at
I would say lifespan of the band.
That's another possible meaning, lifespan, or okay, that's good. But I like I like where they went because they took all the what? All the linguistic meanings and laid all the possibilities out in front of themselves, okay? Because let me ask this question. Is it possible that Allah could be swearing by a Salat al Asr? Is that possible? It's possible, right? So yeah, you have all those possibilities and you try to do what? You try to basically sift through those possibilities and figure out what's the most likely possibility, right? So I like the way they did that. They laid everything out in front of them, all the possible, based upon the linguistic meaning, and then from that, what does Allah really intend? Okay, so now from that, and I really like that now, from one of the other groups, of those meanings, Tafadhal, Baba, Wallahi, yalla. For this session, yalla, just create a partition, let them come, yalla.
Sisters, if you like, inshallah, there's space in the back of the
We'll create a partition for them.
We did yesterday for the sisters. We're going to create an area for the sisters to come. So you guys can come up right now, inshallah. The space has been made for you, so you can come and participate, inshallah. Please, sisters, come on up, inshallah.
Really? Well, it's hard for me to pick it up if we had a mic that we could go around, but for me to repeat everything he just said, it's like, I can't really do that.
We need your group to
move over there so the sisters.
Yeah, they have a clear path, yeah, Juan, yeah. Give them a clear path. I want them to feel comfortable. Yeah, again, for something like this, yeah, Juan, if there's a partition like this where the sisters can see, but we're not, they have a little bit of privacy, there's no harm in that. Prophet ﷺ didn't even have a partition in his masjid. He didn't even have a partition in his masjid. There's no harm in that. Yeah. Oh, la ilaha illallah. All right, so let me hear from one of the other groups out of the possibilities given by the first group, and that was very good. What do you think is ar-rajih? The strongest opinion, or the strongest interpretation, the best interpretation for what Allah intends here by al Asr. Okay. Jamil. So time itself, just time. Hey. Jamil. Jamil. Okay, sisters, create groups of 4 or 5. I don't know if you guys already did that, but if you didn't, divide yourself into groups of 4 or 5. All right, so does everybody feel comfortable with Salim's, or the group, or Salim's group? Everybody feel comfortable with that interpretation? Out of all the options, we go with what? Time. Tafadhal. Ahsant. Ahsant. And that's what Salim is saying. So that you guys are saying the same thing, Sammy. Ahsant. And let me ask, the reason why I like that one is because Allah uses what? Alif Lam, which is an indication of what? Generality. It's an indication of what? The absolute of the thing. So I swear by what? Al Asr. Okay? So that's a good one, and we have our mustanad. We have a basis for saying that. We have a basis for saying that. And that's a good way to come to the conclusion that this is probably the best one. So Al Asr. So now basically we've decided that the intention or the intended meaning is what? Time in the absolute sense. The way Sammy said it, time from the time of creation of the universe to what? Its destruction. So now what's significant? Because remember what we said, the rule that we have is that Allah swears by what? Great things. So what is so great and significant about time, this group? And I think Musa said it when you guys were discussing. What's so significant about time?
Well, referring to what piggybacking on what Salim was saying, we also mentioned that it could be macro and micro. Macro meaning from the time of Adam to the end of time. But it also can refer to a person's lifespan as well. And that,
which one's more significant? So since the rule is, no, I'm saying to swear by something. Which one would be more significant? Yeah, okay, so because we said Allah swears by what? Significant things, we want to pick, if we have 3 options, we want to pick the most significant thing. So what will be significant about him swearing by what? Time from Adam to what? The end of time. The time from what? The beginning of the universe to the end of the universe as we know it. What's significant about that? And you said it earlier. Gotta write these things down, huh? Hey. And you said, I believe I heard you say it. What's significant about that? That's not bad, but there's something else. What is the reality of time? What is its reality? What is it in fact? What about the A'mal Sami? But what about them, ya Ikhwan? What is this? That's not a good example. What is it? Time is like a big envelope. It envelops what? Everything that occurs from what? The beginning of time to what? The end of time. So when it never comes back. That's not bad. That's not a bad. All those answers are good. But Allah knows best. The real significance of time is it's like a huge envelope for what? For everything. It envelops everything, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by al Asr, it's as if He's swearing by what? Subhanallah. It's like He's swearing by what? Everything. And that's pretty significant, which means whatever's going to come is going to be what? Very significant. You guys see that? So wal Asr, I swear by everything. Subhanallah. Because time does what? It encompasses everything. So what would then be and I think that takes us to the Ibrah as well. The Ibrah of that, the lesson that we learn from that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to speak about something which is a what? Great significance. We could even argue paramount significance. And just to show you how significant it is, this surah, what follows this swearing, is that Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, when he talked about this surah, he said, لو ما أنزل الله حجة على خلقه غير هذه الآية أو هذه السورة لكفتهم. He said, if Allah had not revealed to His creation a surah other than this surah, it would have been what? Sufficient for them. This surah. Which means what? This surah, if you take that and what we've listened to so far, or studied so far, this surah actually, and I want you to read in light of this, read in light of what I'm about to say. This surah actually summarizes the deen. Summarizes the way to what? Salvation. And so now when you read, you do your tafseer, you make tafseer what? In light of that. That this surah summarizes salvation. What the Muslims need to do to be what? Saved. Got it? Because he said if this is all they had, it would have been what? Enough. So this must be a basic manual for how to be what? Saved and successful. Make sense? Okay, now let's go to the next ayah. I'm going to give you some talking points. The first one, I want you to pay attention to two things. The verse begins with inna, and then after al-insan, you have lafi. You have that lam. Inna and la, these are what? They are instruments of tawqeed. They are instruments which are used to what? To emphasize. So this is a double emphasis. This is a double emphasis. So now, double emphasis, plus you have what? Swearing. When do we emphasize? When do we say, surely, surely, surely it happened? We do that to what? To dismiss doubt. But didn't Allah already dismiss doubt by saying wal asr? So if He says wal asr, then He says surely, then He says surely again, it means what? Don't have any doubt about this. Oh, I'm giving you the answer. I'm giving you the answer. I'm sorry. All right, I didn't mean to do that. All right, so you have two instruments of what? Of emphasis. And I just gave you the answer to that, son. Okay, I want you to look at something else. Allah says al-insan. He doesn't say insan. He doesn't say some people. He says al-insan. What's significant about that? Al. Pay attention to that. Don't say it. I'm telling you what you're going to discuss in your groups. So what's significant? First thing, what's significant about al-insan? Okay. Then khusr. Khusr, what does it mean linguistically? What does it mean linguistically? What does it mean here in the verse? And what is the lesson that is in it in light of the fact that Allah is what? Emphasizing 3 times. Swearing, and then inna, and then la. Okay, what is the lesson in khusr in light of the fact that Allah what? Emphasizes 3 times? And what is the effect that this verse should have on what? On me as a reader. What should it do to me? What effect should this verse have upon me? And what lesson should I take from it? Those are your talking points. Have at it. All right, ya ikhwan. Sorry about that. All right, ya ikhwan. Let's get to it now. Let's go with Dhul Qarnayn's group, Abu Umar, Ibrahim. Let's see what you guys have for the first one, which is what is significant about al-insan.
We realized
Okay. Subhanallah. Mumtaz. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Subhanallah. Hey. Allah musta'an. Hey. Allah musta'an. And this is 100% correct because Allah uses this alif lam, which we call the istighraq al-jins. So as if Allah says mankind, without exception. He says al-insan, mankind without exception. That's almost what it literally means. Mankind without exception. Every human being, every son of Adam. Okay? So he says lafi khusr. We already talked about inna lafi. That's what? More emphasis. So now we have 3 emphasizers. And then he says khusr. What's the meaning of khusr? I'm going to come to... تفضل يا شيخ. ايه تفضل. Well, the word ins or insan is separate from what? The jinn. Doesn't mean they're not intended by extension. They're not included by extension, but they're not included in this one, in the literal meaning of what? Of this word, al-insan. So when he says insan, he's talking about what? Mankind. Doesn't mean they're not included by extension, though. I guess because primarily, when the Prophet ﷺ came, he was dealing with what? Men, human beings, primarily. Yeah. Okay, so now the meaning of khusr, let's go to Yunus, your group. Khusr. Linguistically? Loss, okay. Loss, like Sammy said, okay, loss. Now, linguistically, what type of loss? Linguistically, in the language. It could be loss in the business or loss with something that's less tangible, right? That's in the language. What about here? The loss of salvation, the loss of one's soul. تفضل ذو القرنين. In fact, al-Asbahani said, without exception, that whenever it's used in the Quran, it always means spiritual loss, loss of salvation. It's only used that way in the Quran, but outside of the Quran, in the Arabic language, it can be used with both meanings. But al-Asbahani said it only means spiritual loss when it's used in the Quran. Okay, so that's what the means. So what's the ibra? What's the lesson that's in that? Let's go to Sammy's group. What's the lesson in the fact that he says every human being is in a state of loss? What's the lesson in that? What's the principle in that? What's the effect of that? What do you guys have for that? No, don't go there yet, Sammy. Don't get ahead of us. But right now, just looking at that, if we just look at that ayah by itself, what would be the lesson, what would be the meaning of it, and what would be the effect that it would have just by itself? Imagine if Allah had just began the surah and ended it with that. Wal Asr, inna al-insan lafi khusr, full stop. Okay, loser in everything. So now what's the significance of that? What's the lesson in that? What does that tell us? What does that teach us? You think? Okay, but apparently, on the face of it, you can't avoid it. Because he said, Inna al-insan lafi khusr, every human being is what? In loss. So if you stop right there, it appears that nobody can what? So the effect that it has on the reader, the lesson it kind of teaches is what? That the door of hope has been what? Closed. And that basically there's no possibility of what? Attaining salvation. There's no possibility. Okay. Now, something has to happen here. Something has to kick in. What has to kick in? We talked about it yesterday. That the Quran, one part of it can't contradict what? Another part. And that has to be explained in light of what? other. And we know that the Quran is filled with what? With the talk of what? Salvation and hope and Allah's mercy. How people will enter what? Jannah. Right? So then what that tells us is that what? Our religion is not a religion of hopelessness. Our God isn't a God of hopelessness. So there must be what? Hope. There must be more to it, more to the story than that. Okay? So we feel this despair because of the way that the ayat have come. But at the same time, we have a hard time swallowing that because what? What we know about what? About Allah and about what He teaches us about what? Having hope, and we have reason to hope. In fact, He tells us that He doesn't want us to what? Despair. And He says, for example, وَلَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رُوحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الظَّالِمِينَ. Nobody despairs of Allah's what? Mercy except what? The people who are what? Wrongdoers. You know, you shouldn't despair, right? Okay. So now, let's go now to the next verse. And the next verse, it starts with what? Illa, except. What's the effect of that? What's the effect of that? What's the effect? That's your first talking point. What's the... Oh, you guys keep doing that? And you guys keep doing that, and I am just going to... Right? Right. So now, what's the effect of what? Illa. What's the effect? That's the first talking point. What's the effect of illa? Okay? And then, if we take this next verse and we see الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, so if you say illa, if you say except, the next question I want you to ask yourself is, what meanings are contained? How do I want to word this? Okay, so illa has an effect. And let's just go ahead and give that effect. The effect, we said, is hope. But it also teaches us something. That there is an exception to what? To the rule. There's an exception, okay? Now, is the exception to the rule, is it someone who does one thing or a number of things? Someone who does one thing or a number of things? A number of things. I'm asking you that just... Okay. All right. So now, what will qualify? What are the number of things? What are the number of things that will qualify a person to be the exception to the rule? Qualify a person for salvation. Okay, what's the number and what are they? Give me the number and what they are. The number and what they are. Okay, and be careful on this one. Be careful on this one. Because sometimes one thing actually what? Indicates what? Two things. So I want you to be careful. All right? So what are the number of things and what are those things? What are things? Okay? Now, the next thing I want you to ask yourself, the things that a Muslim does for salvation, they can be divided into two categories. What are those two categories? The things that a Muslim needs to do to attain salvation, we said there's a number of them, and what they are, they can be divided into two categories. I want you to give me the two categories. What are the two categories? Two categories. So let's say you come up with 6 things. From these list, I get 6 things. They can be divided in two categories. Maybe 3 on this side, 3 on that side. 2 on this side, 4 on that side. But they can be what? Divided into categories. What do those categories tell us about salvation? Or how to attain salvation? What do they tell us about how to attain salvation? 2 categories. What do the categories tell us about how to achieve salvation? What do they tell us about that? And what do they tell us by extension about the deen? What do they tell us by extension about what? The deen. All right? Okay. I think that's good. Let's start with that and then we'll expand on that. Okay, so let's start. Take those as your talking points. Take a couple minutes to work on that and then we're going to come to you. I'll come to you. All right. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so we said that illa will produce the effect of what? Hope after despair. And that gives us the knowledge that there's an exception to the rule. And if we know there's an exception to the rule, we're going to want to know who that is, right? You know, what we have to do, and that's going to cause us to what? Listen, pay attention to what's going to come next. Okay, so that's the effect, or a couple of the effects of what? Of this literary approach that Allah uses in the Quran. All right, now that we said that, what are the things? What's their number? Who give me a number? Tafadhal Shaykh. There are 4 things. Who says there are more than 4? And the sisters can chime in on this one. Not that they couldn't chime in on the other ones. I'm not trying to do. But I'm just saying, are they 4? Does everybody agree there are 4?
I think we should do it more because like some of the things that would imply that you do the good things and you don't do the evil things.
Really? So how many things? How many do you say it is then? 6. You think there's 6? Okay. All right. So 4 and 6. Anybody else have a different number? Tafadhal Sammy. Sammy says only 4. He's like, look, hey, it better be only 4, or I'm gonna. You say it's more than 4. So how many then? You said 4 too? All right. Anybody say 5? He said 5. MashaAllah alayh. Like, that's my opinion too, 5. All right, so let's see if they're 4 or 5. Let's go through and see if they're 4 or 5. Sammy, is it okay if they're 5? All right, tayyib. Let's see how they'll be 5. Let's see how they'll be 5, and then what the 5 are. Okay, first of all, what were the 4 that we all agree on? They what? Believe. They do righteous good deeds. They enjoin and encourage each other to be patient. And they encourage each other to follow truth and then patience. Got it? So those are the 4 we all agree on. Okay? Now this group said that, well, maybe some of them imply another one. Okay? So let's go down and see. They enjoin each other to follow the truth. I think that's pretty straightforward. It's just one thing, right? Because if they're enjoined to follow the truth, that means what? Both following the good and avoiding what? The evil. That's all what? Truth. They enjoin each other, encourage each other to be what? Patient. It's pretty much what? One thing. They do the good deeds. If you're doing good, it implies avoiding what? Evil. So they're kind of like together, not separate. But let me ask this question. Let's look at this one. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. They believe. Let me ask you a question. Can you believe in something before you know it? Can you believe in something before you know of it? Can you believe in something before you know of it? So for example, I ask someone, I say, do you believe in al-Buraq? And he says, what is al-Buraq? There's no way I can believe until I know what it is. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says those who believe, it means 2 things. They know, and then they believe. So basically it's 5 things, as if Allah says, they know, they believe, they act in accordance with what they believe, they encourage each other to follow the truth, and they encourage each other to be patient. 5 things. Got it? So you got 5 things there. These 5 things are what? The most basic roadmap to what? Salvation. That's what Allah is telling us by saying what? Illa. If you do these things, you'll be what? From His illa. From the party of illa, the exception to the rule, the people who won't be what? In loss. And that's a big deal. Which is why He said, al Asr. He makes this huge swearing, because this is a big deal. But look at how Allah, out of His mercy, He made it easy for us. He didn't say illa and mention 10 things, 20 things, 30 things. He said what? Oh, Muslim, do what? Do 5 things. 5 basic things and you'll be what? Saved. Okay, now the question comes, these 5 things we need to put into 2 categories. What's the categories? Okay, so he says, Ibrahim says belief and actions. Does anybody have a different opinion about the 2 categories? Now, pay attention now. I'm going to go through them one by one, and then I want you to see. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. They believe, which means they know, and they believe in what they know, and they act in accordance with what they want. No. And then they mutually encourage each other to follow the truth. And they mutually encourage each other to patience. Anything stick out there? Okay, that's good, but does anything stick out? Oh, who agrees with Eunice? Individual and collective, that the categories of the deeds are deeds that you have to do individually and deeds you have to do collectively. Who agrees with that? Who says, yeah, that makes sense? Mumtaz. So then now, basically, the categories of the deeds that we have to do to be saved can be divided into two categories. The first category, Islah an-Nafs. Rectifying what? Yourself. Cleaning yourself up, getting yourself right, reforming yourself. Islah an-Nafs. The second category, Islah al-Ghayr. Rectifying, reforming, and correcting others. So what's that teach you? What's the lesson you get from that? What's the lesson that you get from that? The fact that salvation is something you do on an individual basis and something you do on a collective basis or communal basis. What is that teaching you about the deen? What? Ahsant. Basically that Islam is a communal religion. It is not a deen of individuals. It's not a deen of individuals, individuality. It's a deen of what? Community. It's a deen of what? It's a communal religion, a deen of us and we, not a deen of what? I and me. And that the Muslim has to be concerned about his fellow what? Muslim. He has to be concerned, or he's not what? Really a Muslim. He's not really a Muslim if he doesn't what? Care about the next Muslim. You follow me? That's a message. That's what? It's not on the surface. It doesn't necessarily jump out at you, but it's what? It's there. It's a teaching point. It's in that series of verses. Oh Muslim, you're not really a Muslim. And you're not really entitled to salvation if you ignore the other one. The other Muslims. And we see this in the Quran. We talked about it yesterday. وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنكُمْ خَاصَّةً. Ward off a tribulation, trial, tumult, which won't just afflict the people who want sin amongst you. Not just the people who do wrong. It'll even affect the people who want to do right if they don't enjoin the good, forbid the evil, and give nasiha, try to reform the people who do wrong. And don't say, it's none of my business. They're not going to listen to me anyway. I'm doing good. And I'm responsible ultimately for myself. Because it's not our job to make the people believe. And the purpose of da'wah is not just for people to what? To do the right thing. That's part of it. We hope that they'll do the right thing. But the other part, we want to free ourselves of what? The blame of not enjoining good and forbidding evil, because that's a responsibility. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, وَقَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِمَ تَعِذُونَ قَوْمٍ اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. So a group from amongst them, they said to the du'at, they said to the people who enjoin good and forbid evil, they said, why are you warning these people who Allah is going to destroy them or punish them with a severe torment? قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَى رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. They said we have two motives, two motivations. مَعْذِرَةً إِلَى رَبِّكُمْ, to relieve ourselves of any blame, responsibility in the sight of Allah, because we did our job. We did what was expected of us. وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. And perhaps they will do what? They'll fear Allah and do the right thing. So our goal isn't, well, they're not going to listen, so why bother? That's not our only goal, that they listen. That's part of our goal. But the other part of our goal is what? To free ourselves of what? Blame. You guys got it? So it's a communal religion. We have a communal responsibility. We have these two categories. That's what it teaches us. And if you read this surah and somebody said, if you read on the surface, the face of it, and somebody says, Wal Asr is a surah that teaches what? Teaches that Islam is a communal religion. You wouldn't get that. But you get it from what? This pondering and reflection. You get that? And we have to take these things away from it. Why, Ikhwan? Because these things are so critical to this tasfiyah and tarbiyah that we're talking about. Because part of the problem with this tasfiyah and tarbiyah is that we go through life as individuals. And you guys ever heard that statement, it takes a village or whatever? It takes a village? Wallahi, it does, man. You want to be a good believer, you want your children to be good believers, you want your wife to be a believer and supportive of you, and everybody's kind of what? Supporting and completing and complementing each other. You need what? A village. And how many people, they complain, and it's no offense to the sisters, you have a man who comes and he complains that he has problems at home with his wife. And there's nobody he can turn to make her see that maybe she's mistreating him, maybe she's falling short in her duties, because there's no women who will what? Who will give her that advice. There's no women who she could ask and they would say, hey, I don't cook for my husband, I don't clean for him. And when he comes in the house, I call him all types of names. And I do these things. And the sister will say, haram, you can't do that. Because Allah says this about the rights of the husband. And the Prophet says this about how you should treat your husband. And conversely, men, they mistreat their wives and they don't go to the masjid and get told off by other brothers. That doesn't happen. So you guys see, but if it did happen, if it was somebody other than the wife saying, you're not treating me good, right? If there was somebody else, the impact would be different, right? If one of your fellow brothers says something and they have nothing to gain, you're more likely to what? To listen to it than your wife, who you think, well, you have special interests. You have a best, you have ulterior motive, and you're just saying that because you have something to gain. But so again, that community can do what? Can help us what? Get past some of what? Some of those stumbling blocks and some of those rough patches. So like I said, that's why this is so critical. This deeper pondering and reading is critical to what? This concept of a tasfiyah with tarbiyah. Because we wouldn't get that just by what? Reading the verse at face value or the surah at face value. But now you see, man, this community is what? It's critical. And I adjure you to, now we have to go to the next level of what? Surrendering and applying that. We have to try to create communities. We can't be the people who what? All we're known for is destroying communities. All we're known for is creating division. So one masjid morphs and becomes what? 2 masjids, 3 masjids, 4 masjids, right? And all we can do is do what? Go around dividing each other. Nah, we need to do what? Come together and make ourselves what? A community. People who what? Support each other, people who advise each other, people who, as the surah mentions, and we're going to go through, right? Wa alaikum salam. All right, so with that said, Dhuhr is at 1:30, is it? Okay, so basically I guess we should stop here. Okay, any questions, Ikhwan? Any questions? I think we did some good work, and you guys can see how this process works, or how it works, and how we need to have this type of approach in reading of the Quran, and the effect it can have. I'm going to ask you honestly, and this is, do you feel differently? After reading the Quran this way, do you feel different about this surah? Did you learn something? Did you learn something that is of practical use? I'm asking you honestly, I can leave here and I can what? I can put this into practice. Not just the way I read, but what I learned. This is how we should read the Quran, ya ikhwan. The Quran should be something that we read it and we walk away and there's something practical, tangible that we can do with it. And wallahi, ya ikhwan, this surah itself, it has that effect, and the other surah, the same thing. There's always something you can take away, a lesson that is actually what? Applicable, pertinent to you and your life, your family, your community. It's always something like that, but we're missing out because we're not reading in this way. So I hope that we took away at least some of those techniques, approaches, and skills that will help us what? To start reading the Quran in a way which what? It will affect us more and also be what? Of practical benefit in our lives. Any questions, Ikhwan? Wa fikum barak, wa fikum barak. Any questions? How do you? Okay. Oh, this is a good question. It says, how do you strike a balance between commanding good, forbidding evil, giving nasiha, and being non-judgmental, and appearing to be proud and arrogant? Okay. Like, is there a talazum? Is there any inseparable connection, any correlation between advising someone and judging them? Are they correlated? Do they go hand in hand? I don't agree with that. I don't agree that if you advise someone, you have to judge them.
How do you determine if you need? Exactly.
When you judge someone, I think you issue a ruling or you pass a judgment. You put like in a category. You are this, you are this, you are this, you are this. What? Not this way. The sisters, do the sisters have a question or a comment and I'm just saying this because some of the brothers are saying the sisters are talking. So if you weren't talking, then I apologize, but they said you were. All right, that said, let me finish my point. You guys can interject because we should discuss this. Because you hear this a lot. So somebody, for example, they pray, okay? And when they prostrate, they do like this. Okay? You guys see that? Yeah. Or when they prostrate, they do like this. Okay? You guys see that? All right, so when they do that, you notice it, and you say to them, dear brother, dear sister, I noticed that you prostrate like that. And I was wondering, why do you do that? Have I judged them? I judge them by asking them why they do something? I'm asking you a question. How do you define judgment? How do you define judgment?
That's the question.
Because I'm asking you, if I ask you why do you do that, maybe it's something I don't know. Maybe it's a way that you do it that I don't know, I'm not familiar with. How's that a judgment? If I just ask you...
You did it and you're doing it. No.
Wait. Go ahead, Musa, go ahead.
When you see something that you don't recognize as being correct, or like I said, maybe something you don't know.
Hey.
I'm not saying you're judging them.
Uh-huh.
You're making the judgment.
Okay, I'm asking you, if I ask you about something you do, just ask you, this thing you do, why do you do it? Or I noticed that you did that. How is that a judgment?
Because I don't think you would do it for most people that did it the way you did it.
Exactly.
Huh?
I don't think you would ask that same question if you see everyone do it you do.
But the fact that you don't do it the way I'm doing it, does it mean I'm judging what you're doing?
No, but you're making a judgment.
I'm making an observation, I'm observing something.
You made a choice to ask.
Okay, I'm making an observation, not judgment. Judgment would be, this is wrong. You are wrong. Okay, now wait, if I see... No, that's not. I don't agree with that. Because you have to give advice whether it's wanted or not. But let's come to the point now, because I want to get to this. Is there a correlation? That's our original question. Is there a correlation between enjoining good, forbidding evil, and judging, being judgmental?
What is the definition?
Okay, so now here, the person, they do what we said. They prostrate the way we said. And I come to them and I ask them, I say, I noticed that you did that, and I was wondering why you did that. And the person says, that's the way I've always done it. So I ask a follow-up question, I say, well, did the Prophet do it like that? Or did you read it like that? Is that judgmental? Is that judgmental? No, I'm asking you, is it judgmental? It's judgmental by asking, did the Prophet do it like that? That's judgmental. How do you define judgmental? How do you define judgmental? Because that's probably where the problem lies.
Right.
That's probably where the problem lies.
You're looking at it as towards the individual.
No, it doesn't have to be toward, it could be toward the thing that he does.
I'm looking at it judgmental because I'm using my judgment of what I know to be the sunnah.
But no, that's not judgment. That's not judgment. Judgment, okay. You go to court. The way I understand judgment, you go to court and the judge hears from the prosecutor. They hear from the defense. And then the judge does what? He gives what? A ruling, a verdict. That's a judgment. Him listening to what? Both sides and hearing what they have to say and trying to figure out who's who and what's right and what's wrong. Him probing is not judging. I'm just inquiring. Now suppose he says to the prosecutor, I'm not understanding that line of argument. Okay? I don't feel that, that's substantial enough. Is he judging? No, I haven't judged. I'm just probing, I'm just asking, I'm just inquiring. The point I want to make is I don't want to go too far away because we're going to answer the sister's question. I don't personally see, first of all, judgmental. Do you think judgmental is good or bad? You think being judgmental is good or bad? Don't be judgmental. Yeah. If you're being judgmental, it's bad. Do you think that Rasulullah was judgmental? Yeah. Do you think he was the best da'i? No. Do you think he was the best person to command good and forbid evil? No. I'm asking you honestly, when the Prophet commanded good and forbid evil, this was his approach. Yastafhim thumma yansah. He would ask questions to clarify where the person was coming from, and then he would do what? Give his advice. Okay? So, for example, man comes and he's wearing a bracelet made of brass on his bicep. Right? And the Prophet said, Ma hadihi. What is this? Gives the person a chance to what? Explain. Okay? Because he could be wearing it for any reason. He could be wearing it because it makes his bicep look bigger. Right?
That asking is not judging.
And that asking couldn't be judging because you said yourself, Rasulullah wasn't what? Judgmental. And he was the best da'i. So he asked him, he said, Ma hadihi? He said, min wahina. He said, it's from what? Al-wahina. Prophet didn't say, anta kafir, anta mushrik, anta kada, anta kada. No. That would be what? Being judgmental. He said, you're a disbeliever, you're this, that would be being judgmental. But the Prophet said, he said what? He said, inzi'ha. He said, now I know where you're coming from. So I'm going to tell you what you should do. I'm going to give you some advice. I'm going to command the good and forbid the evil. Take it off. فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَزِيدَكْ إِلَّا وَحْنًا. Because this will do nothing but what? Increase you in weakness. وَلَوْ مِتَّ وَهُوَ عَلَيْكَ مَا أَفْلَحْتَ أَبَدًا. He said, if you died and you had this on you, with that understanding, there's no way you can be successful. Right? There's no way you can be what? Successful. I'm warning you now. But I didn't call you what? Kafir. Didn't call you mushrik. Didn't call you this, didn't call you that. That would be being what? Judgmental. Now, the good thing is that we had this discussion because what it teaches the sister and teaches whoever is listening is that when you give advice, it's quite possible that the people you advise are going to think you're being judgmental, but that shouldn't daunt you. Because if you ask, get clarification, and you all know that the hukm based upon what you answered is such and such and so and so, and you advise in accordance with the hukm without labeling, without pigeonholing, you have not what? You have not been judgmental. You've just given what? Nasiha. Now they might take it, don't judge me.
Right.
You say, don't judge me. They might say that. And you shouldn't feel, did I judge them? Wallahi, it happens. I've experienced that. You start to question yourself and you feel bad. Did I judge them? Wallahi, I never judged you. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you what? Nasiha. Also, wa'lamu ya ikhwani. It's from the shaitan. The shaitan doesn't want you to give advice. And so he convinces the person, he whistles to the person what? He's judging you. He's judging you. Look at this person judging you. So when they judge, that's from what? When they say judgmental, that's what? That's from them, and it's from what? Their shaitan. And don't be daunted by that. Don't think I'm being judgmental by just giving what? Advice. Also realize that the shaitan doesn't want you to give advice, and when you don't give advice, you're now doing what? Sinning. You're now what? Sinning. Because the Prophet said, مَنْ رَأَ مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. You have to give advice if you're able to give what? Advice. And the only time you leave giving advice is what? Is if the harm of giving advice outweighs what? The benefit. Because our deen is mabniyun على در المفاسد وتقليلها وجلب المصالح وتقليلها. That we try to what? Bring about, we try to repel harm in its entirety as much as possible. If we can't do that, we try to what? Limit it. And we try to bring about the maximum amount of benefit if possible. If we can't do that, we try to what? Bring about as much as we can. And anytime we see this, where there's some benefit and there's some harm, we always give precedence to what? Avoiding the harm. So that's when you're allowed to what? Not give nasiha. But if there's a sister in the masjid who is doing something that's what? Wrong, and you're in a position to give sincere advice in a gentle manner, then you give what? You give advice in the best manner. And don't be daunted by the fact that she might say, don't judge me. Who are you to judge me? Say, wallahi, I'm not judging you. I'm just giving you advice as Allah and His Messenger said. Make sense? Hatfadli Shaykh. Allahumma salli wa sallam. Uh-huh. Well, I think maybe the problem lies in what? How we understand the word. But I think judgmental in the sense that is blameworthy. Let's put it like that. No. Judgmental in the sense it's blameworthy would be when you what? When you issue a verdict. And that's where we should stop short. Give the nasiha, and don't tell the person you're going to go to hell, you're a kafir, you're this. We don't do that. We don't pass judgments. We give what? Advice. Okay, we give advice. That's we don't pass what? Judgments. Last of the things it said, appearing to be proud and arrogant. Appearance is something you really can't control, or there's a limit on how you control it. So basically you have to be as humble as possible. And if you can't be humble, maybe you should what? Defer. Let somebody else give them the nasiha. If you're a person who, some people they just naturally have what? A usloob which is what? Harsh. They're naturally what? Had. Right? They can't help it. They don't mean to be, but they just come off had. And I know that some people I respect and I like them, they have a tendency to not be subtle and not to pick the best way to what? To say things. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that a man is wearing a pink shirt. Anybody wear pink shirts? Nobody wants to raise their hand. Nobody wants to wear it. Abd'Llah. So a man's wearing a pink shirt, okay? And I don't have a problem with pink. Just between you and me, right? So anyway, a man's wearing a pink shirt, right? And somebody thinks that a pink shirt is feminine. They think it's feminine, okay? So Ibrahim thinks it's feminine, right? Well, you can use his examples as you raise your hand, right? Passing judgments, brother. So he thinks it's feminine, and the Prophet said, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ الْمُتَشَبِّهِينَ بِالنِّسَاءِ مِنْ الرِّجَالِ. May Allah curse those men who imitate women. So he thinks it's feminine, he thinks this hadith is applicable, so he says, is that your shirt or your wife's shirt? Are you wearing your wife's shirt, brother? Wallahi, Ikhwan, this is not, and the person probably has good intentions. But this is not the way you give nasiha. You guys see what I'm saying? This person should not give nasiha. You guys are laughing, and this is reality. I've actually seen this happen. Is that your shirt or your wife's shirt? Imagine that too. That's another thing too. They don't even have the subtlety to basically say, hey, how you doing? Long time no see. Is that your wife's shirt? No, they come right in. Person shake, hey, salam alaikum. Then they say wa alaikum salam. Salam alaikum. Is that your wife's shirt? I mean, wallahi, that's not a good usloob, ya ikhwan. That's not a good usloob. And if a person has that type of approach, that's their natural approach, then they don't need to give nasiha. Why? Because the harm will outweigh what? The benefit. So sometimes they perceive us as arrogant, or harsh because we are. Sometimes a person isn't, by any means. They're very humble. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about men and women pink? The reason why I asked that is because of this hadith. And so I'm a little bit concerned. I've always felt that it's not a color that fits a man. I wanted to know your thoughts. Have you even thought about that? Do you guys see the difference? Do you see a difference? Or don't you? Are they the same or are they different? That's not the issue. The issue is just the usloob. Not about whether it's right or wrong. I don't have a problem with it, to be honest with you. I don't have a problem with it. As I told Musa, and I know Musa's a very good dresser.
That point, you have to prepare to give advice.
But you guys get the point. I just want to make sure you get the point. Don't get the point lost in a pink shirt. Pink shirt's an example.
Right.
You get the point. Do you see a difference in the approach? And if you were on the other side of that, would you be able to accept the second one? Would you be able to accept that? If you had a pink shirt on and somebody said it to you like that, would you be able to accept that? But wouldn't you have a hard time, even if you're a person of faith, and you're a person who fears Allah and you're very committed, wouldn't you have a hard time accepting the first one? Because just the usloob, right? That's what I'm trying to make, is that the sister says, well, how can we avoid appearing arrogant? You can avoid by what? By your usloob. And once you do that, once you do your due diligence, whatever is beyond that of appearance, that's the problem of what? The other person. So if you came in the second style and you said, hey, I don't know, I just was wondering because I read this hadith and I didn't know if I've always thought like that, but I want to see your take on it. Somebody approaches it like that and they say, oh, you're arrogant. That's on them, man. That's on them. That just goes back to what we talked about earlier, how the shaitan, he wants to make this process unsuccessful. And so he's going to whisper to that person. The person's arrogant, the person's holier than thou, they're self-righteous. He's going to do that, and you have to rise above that. Because you know inside yourself, that's not my intention, that's not how I feel, and my approach doesn't justify that. My approach doesn't justify that. Tafadhal, Yunus. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
If you're truly being judgmental, you've already labeled the person.
Uh-huh.
So you won't be able to sincerely give advice. You won't bother to give advice.
No, because some people like Ibn Rajab, he has a book called al-Farq bayn al-Nasihati wa-Ta'yir. Al-Farq bayn al-Nasihati wa-Ta'yir. So basically the difference between giving advice and basically trying to humiliate the person, right? And to basically berate and vilify the person. So what that means is that some people actually, they call themselves giving advice, but their intention is what? To vilify the person. So they will, I've judged you, and I'm not trying to improve you. Got you. At the end of the day, you wouldn't be giving advice. What you're actually doing is vilifying them. Exactly. Which we have to pay attention to, the intention, la shak. Fi shay ya ikhwan. Anything else? Fadallah, Abbasi. Mm-hmm.
When I first started to learn how to take Salah, during the congregation, actually put my forearm down. I didn't know it yet.
Uh-huh.
Bunched up pretty tight during Ramadan, so it's big quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I put my forearm down on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And the brother next to me was one of the brothers when I took my shower. And he waited till Salah was done.
Mm-hmm.
And then before we moved on to do anything else, he immediately told me the proper way to make session.
Mm-hmm.
And we recorded, the proof of it.
MashaAllah.
So I think as individuals, we should get over ourselves first.
MashaAllah.
And had I not done the act, nothing else would have followed. So I start with myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I did something that caused, was the thing I did right or wrong? And most of the time, I don't get beyond that. There's no accusing the person of this. First I need to fix if what I did was actually wrong. If I know. I need to find out. So I think that's where we need to stick with the basics, and as the receiver, check with ourselves first. As the giver, check with yourself first.
MashaAllah.
Make sure before you give that you actually know you're giving that something sufficient or not misleading or don't have it right yourself. These are things in my 16 years what I'm seeing and learning and so on and so forth. So that's just, some advice from an old man been around the block a few times.
Allah is a khair, Allah is a khair, Allah is a khair. طيب في شيء يا إخوان? Anything else? Any questions, comments, complaints, critiques? All right, well, let me just, before you do that, I just want to say that I really enjoyed the weekend. I really enjoyed it. It's like a lot of brothers that I haven't seen in a long time. I got to reconnect with them. That was quite therapeutic for me. And inshallah ta'ala, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's good for all of us, will reunite us, inshallah ta'ala. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak Nabi Muhammad.